Welcome to the Creative Mystic, where strong women wield magic and ancient wisdom. This is a bonus chapter. It's about the death scene I wrote and then how I ended up living it out with my dog. This is from an author's tale. This is my dog, Scooter. He's an Italian Greyhound. So when I wrote this death scene in The Rebel Healers, the first book, where Ilara's mate is killed, I didn't realize the effect how it would play out in my life. I certainly wasn't expecting that, if this was just supposed to be a literary adventure. But a lot of things in the book have turned out where I have ended up experiencing them firsthand, even though I just wrote about them when what I thought was from my imagination. The death scene, even now, when I read it, it it still makes me cry. It's moving. And about a month or so after I got my books published, and I was just getting them out there ready to go to market them, to share them with the world, my dog, who at that time was 15, he got pneumonia. And I didn't know what it was, but was just really lethargic and he looked like he was going to die. And it just tore me up because I didn't know what was wrong with him, for one thing. And the other is I wasn't ready for him to go. So I called all the vets around here and they were either too busy or they said, "Oh, well, we have an opening in 2 weeks." Well, the way he was acting, he would go outside and he would just fall over. And he had a fever and he was panting. And I knew there was something wrong, but I didn't know what. So finally, one helpful vet said, "You need to take him to the animal clinic hospital in Corvallis, which is about an hour and some odd minutes away from me." So by this time it was nighttime and I didn't want to drive in the dark. So I figured, well, if he's going to make it, he's going to make it. And I told him to give me a sign. If he wanted to die, okay, I was going to deal with that. But if he wanted to live, he better give me a very clear message. So the next morning he got up and he went outside and he went potty like he does. And he looked at me expectantly like, okay, we need to do something here. So I bundled him up with my partner and we went over to Corvallis, and that's where I found out that he had pneumonia. And so they put him on oxygen and they kept him there at the animal hospital, which he hated and he didn't want to eat. And the the vet said, "Oh, he's got all these health problems and should we put him down now or whatever?" And I just said, I didn't want to deal with it. I really didn't want to deal with it. And so I said, well, let's give him a day and see what happens. So, and in the meantime, because Scooter and I have a telepathic connection, a very deep connection, energetic connection, I talked with him and I said, look, you have a choice. You can go ahead and go to the dog spirit world, or you can stay. It's up to you, but you have to make that choice. So the next day, his numbers started getting better. And so I was hopeful that maybe he would make a recovery, which, to make a long story short, he did. But I had to take him home against the doctor's orders because he was not eating and they did not want to release him because he needed to take meds and he needed to eat. So I took him home and I started nursing him back to health. And eventually he made a full recovery. But unfortunately, he lost a certain amount of weight. He's a skinny little dog anyway, as you can see. They're Italian Greyhounds or miniature Greyhounds. They're long and sleek, and they don't have any extra fat on their bodies. So he lost about a pound, which for him was a lot. But he did fine, and we got back to our normal schedule of going out for walks, and he was playful and interested in life and everything. Well, then right after that, my partner fell and broke his hip, And that turned our whole world upside down for over a year. And so he spent a lot of time helping my partner heal. And that was a really tough time. And after about 6 or 8 months of that, he ended up with pneumonia again. But I knew the signs this time, and I knew what was going on. So I called up the animal clinic, the animal hospital over there, and I said, I think he's got pneumonia. So we made an appointment this time, not the emergency care. And so I took him over there, and she took x-rays, and she says, oh, there's a lump on his lung. Here, I'm going to just send you home. He's dying. Just send me home with some drugs, and he's dying. So that was rather upsetting to hear that news. But also, I knew he had pneumonia. So I said, okay, we need to do a radiology, get the radiology report. And of course, I was home. But by this time, I I had left there the Corvallis and I had to get the meds, but I couldn't get the meds at the pharmacy because they wanted an outrageous price for them. So I ended up having to go through the vet. Well, luckily I had some left over from the previous time. And I also do energy imprinting. So I was imprinting him with the frequency of that antibiotic that was specific for him. So to make a long story short again, we nursed him back to health. So both those times was traumatic because I had to face the fact that he's getting older now. By this time he was 16, and how much longer was he going to live? We had made an agreement, him and I, at the first time he was sick for his healing. He agreed that he would help me stop being so pessimistic and looking at the worst case scenario and to help me train myself to find a more positive approach, a more positive response to situations, which that is still a work in progress. But he did help me with that, and I'm very grateful for that. So the second time around was kind of like a reminder because I had gotten so stressed and depressed from the caregiving situation I was in. And I was like, okay, okay, thank you, God, you're reminding me. So now this has been almost a year since that incident. And in about the past 2 or 3 months, he sort of took a little nosedive. And before, he had lost a lot of weight, but he was still eating rather vigorously and drinking, and he could still get around very, uh, very well. He was starting to get, he didn't want to, he loved to run, and that stopped a few years ago. But he could still go out for walks. But now he didn't want to go out for walks. It was getting to be winter time, and it was getting cold outside, and he did not want to go for a walk. And so he started going downhill. But he was still eating, and he was still drinking, and he could still get around, although he was getting clumsy. The back end wasn't working, and sometimes he would fall down. But he was interested in life. He kept track of everything going on. And this has been going on for a while. He's still interested in life. There's still somebody behind his eyes. So very recently, a friend of mine came over. She's another healer, cranial sacral lady. And she said, he's suffering. You need to put him down now. It's time for him to go. And that wasn't what I wanted to hear. So I had to deal with myself. So that day was rather rough. But in fact, he's come in to keep track of me now because he knows I'm talking about him. So the questions became, and if you're in this situation too, where you have to let your animal go, it's time. I agree, it's time. I've known intuitively that he's been going downhill and that his time is nearing. But the real question is, when is that time? And the second question is, do I take the responsibility to have a vet euthanize him, or do I let him die naturally? And this is such a gray area, and there is a lot of opinions about that. So I had to do some real soul searching about this whole thing. And it raised a lot of questions for me because I am, I've been trained in healing, and Ilara is a healer. And I keep kind of, and we are sort of like on parallel paths here, even though she's in her own world and I'm in this world. The question became, is it fair and right for me to put down an animal that is not quite ready to go? Now, I talked with him rather extensively, and his body's failing him, and he's not happy about that. But he's not really in pain. He's just not happy about his way his body cooperates because he was so athletic and so agile and run, 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 run. And he had all sorts of stamina and energy and could do all sorts of things. But now his body's just not cooperating, especially when he falls over and he stands up and he looks so disgusted, not in pain, just disgusted. And I asked the vet, for the last few years, I've been getting him acupuncture, and I asked the vet, how do I know when it's time? And he said, well, as long as the dog is eating and drinking and seems to be interested in life, then let him live. So, okay, that's what I've been doing. And he said that if the dog is in pain, they won't whine or cry. They will usually be very lethargic. They'll go off and hide somewhere. They'll be very antisocial. And Scooter's not exhibiting any of those signs. So I wrestled and wrestled with things because I knew that what the lady said was true. It was time for him to go. But the thing was, I had to let him go. I was the one holding on to him, and he was living because of me, because I didn't want to let him go. I'm like Ilara. She was happy with her life, and she didn't want to rock the boat, and I was in the same boat. I've got a routine going. He's been with me for over 16 years. And I didn't want to change, but change happens and change is necessary. So I had to start working on trying to find the positive outcome of, well, when he's gone, these are the things that I will be freed up. I'll have more energy. I won't have so much time, things. I'll have more time to do other things. But the biggest thing is I won't have this inner conflict about should I be, is he okay? Should I be putting him down? All these questions that go on as an end of life dog owner or cat or pet owner, which if you have been in that position, you'll understand what I'm talking about. So I've uh, studied soul realignment, and I've studied a lot of energetic healing, a lot of mystical healings, shamanistic work, uh, other soul work. So it's my opinion. Now, there's a lot of ideas about this, but it's my opinion that the animals that choose to become our pets are here to not only help us evolve, to be our teachers and our mirrors and show us all the things that we don't want to know about ourselves or that we can't see ourselves, but also we are here. This is a co-creation. We are here to help them. He's over there. To help them evolve and become more conscious too. Now, there's a lot of theories out here about animals and souls. And some say that there's only one dog angel and it's like a collective soul for animals. And that may be true for like wild animals. But I am becoming I'm coming to think that the animals that choose us for pets choose us for their pets, that choose to be our pets, and probably vice versa, because they do a really good job of training us as their owners. There is a there is a a deeper energetic relationship between us. And it's not just simply they're a lesser being. They have a spirit too. And one of the teachings of the Celtic traditions and the in Elara's world is that all life should be treated with respect and it should all be treated equally. And so here I run into a conflict because I have been raised with the idea that animals are lesser beings. They can't think. That is totally incorrect. They don't have consciousness. They're lesser beings than humans because humans are the top of the pinnacle of the evolutionary scale, which is also incorrect. But I have come to learn over the years and my experiences with my own animals. I've had horses, and he's actually my first dog that I really had. I've had a lot of cats. In fact, I had two cats he had for companions, which made a very interesting dynamic. But they taught me a lot. They taught me that there's no way in the world I would want to be anything but who I am. And that's a tough one because when you look at a dog and a cat, I'm digressing here a little bit, but when you look at a dog and a cat, they have certain built-in talents and instincts that lead them to behave the way they do. And they're happy with themselves. Well, now, I've been playing with this one for years too. If you take those, because we are basically a animalistic form, we are on par with the design of animals. Our brains are just a little bit different. Animals operate in the present moment, and we have the ability to think and rationalize and plan ahead, which can be a good thing, and it can also be a not necessarily a bad thing, but something that can get us off track. So animals do things differently. They have incredible intelligence. Now, just because they can't think and add up numbers and calculate out some sort of a very involved plan, that doesn't mean they aren't intelligent. They have certain tools. They have their nose, their teeth, their ears, their paws, like horses have their little lip, and those little upper lips can be very, very useful, getting into all sorts of trouble. So, and there's been evidence, there's been videos about how crows and other animals learn how to problem solve by using tools, and that is supposed to be a sign of intelligence. So, I don't care what you think, but I think that animals are intelligent. I also think animals have a form of consciousness. It may be different than ours, but they still have a form of consciousness. And so getting back to this whole decision about should I put him down, should I take the action, call a vet and put him down, or should I let him live out his life? So this day I was wrestling with myself. I went outside. It was a beautiful day and I took him out. We walked around the yard and carried him around the yard. We talked about all the good times we had. And then I was going to go out for a little walk because I needed to clear myself. This was way too much. And he wanted to go with me. So I bundled them all up. And so we went out. We only walked about 100 feet or so. And he did his little sniff and he had to write his messages and he acted just like normal. It's like, wait a minute. Who am I to decide that he has to die at a certain time because why? For my convenience? Because he's uncomfortable? What about his choice? Isn't it fair for him to have a choice? So you know where this went. Then I had to go down a rabbit hole because why is it fair for us to dictate the life and the terms of our animal pets? But It's not accepted at all for an elderly person who is in similar or even worse shape to even consider euthanasia. That is, that's murder. But it's okay to have that done to our pets because that's okay because pets are lesser animals and they don't have spirits and they don't and we don't need to care about them. And that just didn't agree with. I just couldn't agree with that because I've watched I've watched a lot of elderly people in my life, my mother, my father, now my partner, and elderly friends. I've watched them all fade, lose their mobility and lose their minds so they can't remember what they talked about. And it's very difficult. It's very challenging to have a conversation with someone with dementia because you hear the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over. And after a while, you just say, I'm done. I'm done. You got to leave. And and then if they lost their physical function, then depending on what that is, they might be stuck in a wheelchair, might be stuck in a bed. They may have to have someone help transport them between the bed and the bathroom. And I mean, and so here you have it. It's not okay for a person in that shape to be euthanized. But you have a dog who is still interested in life. And a lot of these elderly people are like zombies now. They fall asleep all the time. They watch TV all the time. They they're detached from life. And it's difficult to have a conversation with them because they're spending half the time off in the spirit world because that's where they need to go, but they're afraid to go. I saw this over and over again. So I do speak from experience in that. It may not be the norm for everyone, but of the people I have experienced, that has been my experience. So here's this experience that I've seen with elderly people, and then I go look at the dog, and he's interested in life. He's eating, he's going outside to go to the bathroom, he's interested. He might not be as stable on his feet as he used to, but at least he's walking around. He's not depressed. When you talk to him, he looks at you. And it's like, is it right for me to kill him when here are these humans that are worse off than he is, and they're kept alive? And so I haven't come to a conclusion with this answer yet, but I just realized I'm throwing this out here because this is a question. I'm not advocating killing off the humans. Let me get that straight. I'm just saying, why do we think that it's okay to kill an animal when it's not okay to kill a human? Or I should say, maybe not kill is correct. Maybe the more correct way would be to say to prematurely end life of an animal. Is it, maybe it's just because we can't talk to them? I'm not, I don't know. I don't know where this belief came from, but I'm questioning it. I'm raising a big question. Now, the jury is not out on what's going to happen with Scooter. At this point, I decided that as long as he can eat and take himself outside to go to the bathroom. I mean, in other words, as long as he can care for himself, eat and drink and go outside, and he's not falling down and hurting himself, then I'm just going to leave the status quo and let him choose. We've had a lot of conversations and and I've been really working on myself to let go, and I'm about 90%, but there's still that little bit of attachment, which I have to work on. And I'm certain that once that I've finally made peace with the whole thing, then he will transition because he wants to. And he knows it's time to. And he's tired of this body that just doesn't cooperate. But so that's the other dynamic that happens with pets and pet owners. There has to be a peace. And I knew if I went and ended his life prematurely, knowing that he was still functioning and he wasn't at death's door, he's just like 3 or 4 steps away. But he's not at death's door because I watched my cats die. and I knew what was going on. And he was at death's door when he had pneumonia the first time. I caught it early the second time, and I started giving him meds before I even took him to the vet because I knew what it was. It's like when you're so close to an animal, you intuitively know what's going on. So I know this is a controversial subject, and I know that people have different opinions about when an animal gets old. Should you let them run the course or end their life prematurely? Or I guess I would say end it early, whether it's premature or not, just take them out of their misery is kind of the way it is. Now, I do think that if something changes, then I'm going to have to reevaluate this whole thing and decide. And at that time might be the right time to put him down. But right now he's still functioning. If he falls or if something changes, he's got this mass on his lung, and I don't know what that's going to do, or if it's even a growth. I don't know. But I will keep you updated on what happens because this is very near and dear to my heart. And when I wrote this death scene in the book, I didn't realize that I would be experiencing it. So now I get to write another death scene, and I can really write firsthand what it is to experience something like that as the main character. So until next time, if you like to hear more, be sure and subscribe to my channel. And I don't know what I'll talk about next time, but I will keep you updated on what happens with Scooter because I know his time is near, but I don't know when, and I have given him the choice. So until next time.